Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me today. And today we're gonna be talking about the local music scene. And when I mean by local, I mean by the Singapore local scene. So stay tuned, I guess. Stick around for this video if you want to know why we seem to hate our local music so much. Now, just to give a bit of context, I would like to say that I don't think people do actively hate the local music scene. I think it's just really more of an apathy or indifference towards local arts and local talent in general that is really the main issue here. But I would say that particularly with music, I feel a stronger sense of a kind of stricter standard that we enforce onto like local musicians. And I would say that music is a kind of performance art that really requires consistent engagement with its audience. It's a kind of popular art, right? It's supposed to be one that's entertaining and reflective of the people, reflective of the times. It's kind of very contemporary. Realize I use both kind of very in the same sentence. I think over the years, many of us have constantly heard things like, where is our local talent? Where is our local music scene? Where are all these people? And I would like to tell you that in my own research about this topic, that there's two sides to the story, right? There's musicians who do not want to sell out to huge commercial brands, as in huge commercial companies. They want to stay small, they want to stay as a subgenre, as an alternative genre, and they want to keep a small cozy audience. Most times, these musicians are in it for the long haul. They don't want to really scale up big, and they're content with being small. However, in Singapore, I don't think that's always financially viable. People do want to pursue music as a legitimate career, and so you have to make money through that. And that's why some musicians would want to take up contracts, and want to take up being with a company, being with a recording agency, etc., being with a label. Yeah, that's the word. I'm not going to be focusing on the alternative subgenre group people, musicians. I'm not going to be focusing on that, because I do think that they have very different social dynamics and they're very different intentions. I'm going to be talking about musicians who do want to be seen, they do want to be heard, about the music scene that we should be listening to as a popular culture thing. And I boiled it down to three main reasons, and don't worry, I'm going to substantiate them with evidence as much as possible. So one, let's talk about the first reason, and that's exposure. Now, this is kind of like a chicken and egg problem. You want to build exposure for these local talents, local musicians. At the same time, the support structure is just not there, such that these musicians cannot constantly put themselves out there. Many artists and musicians are pursuing their art, pursuing the musical career as sort of like a side job, not their full-time career. There's not a lot of people who are pursuing it as a full-time career. But that's the issue. The more you have people pursuing these creative endeavors as only a part-time job, you're going to see a lot of people who are unable to pursue it as a full-time job, because most likely as a part-time job, you're offering your rates and you're lower, you're more flexible. You don't really rely on these gigs as your full-time income, and that in effect actually does affect full-timers. And I would say that this is my own experience in the dance industry as well. I'm not making money off dance, but I do see how a lot of dancers, if they pursue dance part-time, it kind of affects opportunities for full-timers as well. There has been several instances where I think various people try to step in and build that exposure for local music. And I would say that there's two approaches. One is kind of like the government approach, and the other is kind of ground-up initiatives. And for the government approach, there is this Here 65 initiative. They have a website, and you can kind of read about articles about local music, and you can kind of search releases by them, etc. It was kind of a hit and miss. There is an article that did talk about how this approach by the state may not really be the best way to encourage Singaporeans to support their local music, mostly because it just feels very forced. It feels like you're promoting them simply because they are Singaporean. And this is something that I think Josie mentioned in an interview as well, that if you're going to support local, you might as well support local because they're good and not because they're just Singaporean. Now, moving on to the kind of ground up approach, is that there's this Singapore Community Radio, and it's started up by these two producers, and now they host a daily program, and they have articles about the local creative industry. I know this is not just about music, but they do have quite a bit about music as well, and I thought that initiative was super cool. You can check it out. I'll have the link down below. So that's the first reason why we, locally we might not know so much about the local music industry, because there's just not enough exposure. And when you think about it, you think in the perspective of a musician, you might be pursuing music as a part-time career. You don't have the time or the money to put yourself out there, to advertise yourself, and everything just falls flat. And so that's why locally as well, the audiences are not really putting in the effort as well to understand if there are local talents that they want to support. Because I honestly tell you this, that if you go to the website here 65 and you go through all the music right there, I'm sure you can find a musician that you really like. There's so many genres that are being put out by locals right now. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, awesome stuff. You should go and check it out. The second reason is the belief in the arts. Now, I think in general, I don't have to say this because everyone kind of knows that we just don't really believe in the arts as much. And I don't really have a point of comparison because I've not really lived in other countries. But I will say that, yeah, we don't really consume art. In a recent survey by NAC, it was said that, a lot of people didn't really support the arts because they just didn't know about them. And a lot of them were just indifferent. I'll just kind of plug the stats here. And then the two main reasons was that they don't know or they don't have time. And you can't really fight against those reasons. Like, if people don't really want to indulge in the arts, or they don't want to patronize the arts, then you as much as you have amazing talent, you promote them and you have such great advertising, at the core, like, these Singaporeans are just not going to support the music. I think they would rather go shopping. They would rather I don't know, talk about stocks. I don't know what do people do if they're not dabbling in the arts. I have no idea. But yeah, so I think really fundamentally the second reason is about belief in the arts. We just don't really consume arts leisurely. That's a huge problem, and I think in a future video I will talk about this more in depth, about the case for an arts education in Singapore. I think that's a huge factor why the bulk of the working population, or the bulk of the people with disposable income, do not really support the arts or do not go out their way to find local talent to support. Third reason is pretty interesting. I think this is a reason that is very, very specific to the music industry in Singapore. It is something that I came across while I was researching, amongst academic papers. And that is a case of a colonial hangover. Now, you might think, right, local music, I think first few thoughts you would be thinking like, oh, we do have a lot of great singers, right? Some of them have broken into the mandopop world. We have many great Malay singers who have been releasing singles in Malaysia and in Indonesia. We have these great singers who are very well known abroad. I will say that that's a very strange phenomenon, because we seem to be very good at exporting music that is based on our other languages that is not as much as English. We do have a few English singers that have gone pretty big overseas. For example, Jasmine Sokko, and she's doing quite amazing stuff. And I would say that it's a super interesting phenomenon. If I say colonial hangover, you might, what is that, right? And this is a kind of thing where people would perceive English spoken by Singaporeans as inauthentic compared to those spoken by Western counterparts, for example, like those in the UK or the US, or at least native English speakers from abroad. So there is a sense of inauthenticity, and what this means is that Singaporean English just doesn't seem to be real English. And this is so funny because we grew up speaking English. English is our kind of official language of exchange. It is how we also consume the bulk of whatever is around us. There's a paper published by Yasser Matar in the year 2009, and he kind of interviewed a lot of Singaporeans about why they don't really seem to support English speaking local musicians, and many of them just said that, you know, they just don't sound right, you know. Why would I listen to Singaporean English if I could listen to English music by someone in the US? So this is a very strangely occurring thing that seems to happen only to English songs in Singapore. And this kind of whole cultural phenomenon can be called popular culture cringe. There's so many studies on cringe out there. I don't have the full knowledge of that. But yeah, basically we just don't seem to enjoy English speaking talents simply because it's cringy. It doesn't seem legitimate. It doesn't seem like it's real English music. And those are such huge words to unpack, because what really is proper English? And that's gonna go into the whole rabbit hole of linguistics in Singapore and how we have adopted this strange in-between space of being Asian but speaking English. Now anyway, that is something really sad, I think, to think about today, because then yet again in this interview with Josie as well as Charlie Lim, Josie did mention that, you know, people did tell her that she should pursue music in Mandarin, in Chinese, but she said, like, why? If everyone did that, there would be no English speaking musicians in Singapore. And I just find that quite amusing. Like, yeah, it's true, we won't have English speaking musicians despite the fact that we all pretty much speak English here. So that's it. Those are the three main reasons why. If you think there are other reasons, do let me know in the comments below. And if these reasons are not comprehensive enough, I'll try my best to support it with more evidence in the description box. But anyway, that's it from me. Do check out local music as much as you can. There's just so many good musicians out there. Sorry, my video just died. But anyway, thanks for watching. And see you in the next few videos. Cool. Subscribe, like, comment, I don't know.